6 times Shaq totally disrespected NBA players. It's common that rappers throw shade at one another on diss tracks, but did you know that Shaq's also done that? You gotta see him rapping towards his rival, and we promise we won't leave you without that. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the most dominant players in NBA history, helping his team to win NBA championships and Olympic gold. Shaq is a born leader, with extraordinary drive and determination. Insisting on his right to make up his own mind, he demands freedom of thought and action and does not let anything or anyone stand in his way once he's committed to his goal. Always seeking the forefront and limelight, Shaq needs to feel in command of important undertakings and resists supportive roles. He can become irritated and even domineering when important things do not go his way. Shaq can be impatient in even his shortcomings and those of others. And with that in mind, we're going to see 6 times that Shaq totally disrespected NBA players. Welcome to Everything Sports. Number 6, Dwight Howard. Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard have one of the NBA's strongest running beefs. The feud began between the two when Dwight Howard put on a Superman costume in 2008 dunk contest, in which Shaq viewed as stealing his persona. One thing Shaq was consistently harped over the years is that Howard had never won a ring. Shaq slighted Howard consistently in his new role on TNT. Whenever the subject of best centers was approached, Shaq would insist Dwight Howard didn't belong in the conversation. He was a top rebounder, an explosive scorer, and an elite defender at the time. None of that mattered to Shaq. Howard enjoyed something of a career resurgence last season with the Lakers, turning into a key bench piece for the team that won the 2020 NBA Finals. As the Lakers were celebrating their championship in the locker room, Howard went live on Instagram and gave an emotional message to the fans about never giving up on your dreams. It was a cliched message for sure, but perhaps younger people watching that video found some inspiration in it. More than anything, it was completely harmless. At least, that's how it appeared to everyone but O'Neal. On the big podcast with Shaq, O'Neal blasted Howard by calling him a frontrunner and bandwagon jumper and suggested that he didn't have anything to do with the Lakers' time. Quote, "There's a lot of players on the little Instagram bragging like they was the reason they got the championship. I'm not going to say any names. Sit your ass down. You didn't do nothing. Stop that. Post one pic and sit your ass down." O'Neal clearly doesn't like Howard. He felt this way for more than a decade. Even still, it's hard to listen to this audio clip without thinking Shaq is acting insecure and being totally unfair to Howard. Number 5, Steve Nash. O'Neal doesn't apparently feel satisfied with how some things in his career played out. One in particular was losing the MVP race twice to Phoenix Suns legend Steve Nash. During Nash's appearance on Inside the NBA on TNT, O'Neal made sure to remind him about the MVP that the newly signed Nets head coach had allegedly stole from him during their playing career. Nash, on the other hand, didn't hesitate to fire back. Quote, "If you're at your house, you can show me one of those MVP trophies you stole from me." Shaq did an interview with Vibe magazine and spoke candidly about the robbery. Quote, "Steve Nash is my boy, but I don't see how the F he got it twice. I was taught never to complain because you can't beat the system. People know who the real dominant guy was. But Steve Nash, I don't want to say it because you might print it and it might cause problems. I don't believe he beat me out twice." The two had played together for 2 seasons at Phoenix. You would think the time together would help Shaq see how Nash's game elevated the play of his teammates, but not even close. Shaq still maintains that Steve Nash's 2 MVP awards were given to him out of sympathy and that he still deserves the award. Number 4, JaVale McGee. Most folks that have been following the NBA for the last several years are aware that former LA Lakers center Shaquille O'Neal and the team's current starter at that position, JaVale McGee, well, they're not really the best of friends. The majority of you might even probably know the crux of their mutual disrespect for one another come from Shaq's Shaq and a Fool segment on TNT. At one point, the feud got real bad. We meant that McGee had been featured on Shaq in more than any other player, and even their moms had to get involved to put a stop to it. Well, that might sound awfully childish, but what can we do? SB Nation's excellent video team did, and rounded up the full history of a wonderful bite-sized 11-minute explainer for all of us to digest, and remember all the highs and lows of the two big men's dysfunctional relationship. While it's fair to note that McGee does mess up sometimes, and often spectacularly when it happens, it's hard not to watch this and view him as a sympathetic figure. With the constant highlighting of his mistakes, even some that were borderline, and even while he was out for the season with an injury, it's not hard to understand why he'd eventually get fed up and push past a breaking point. At some point, teasing does get playful and more mean-spirited, and it does feel like Shaq crossed that line. And while the video notes that the beef is mostly dead, it's also worth remembering that it's not entirely dormant. The Shaq-McGee beef is a classic tale of a joke gone too far. And because this joke had gone too far on national TV year after year, it's only natural that things blew up into a heady cut of well-seasoned beef. Before we continue, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to turn on your post notifications so that you never miss a video from us. Number 3, Brad Miller. On January 13th, 2002, Shaq and the Lakers were in Chicago. The Bulls had made clear before the game that they weren't going to let Shaq push him around. So whenever he caught the ball, Charles Oakley and Brad Miller would rush to foul him if he was anywhere close to the basket. At this point, it was well known that Shaq was a below-average free thrower, and teams were better off letting him shoot from the free throw line than anywhere else on the court. With the Lakers leading 87-84 in the fourth quarter, Shaq caught an entry pass in the paint and was immediately flanked by Oakley and Miller, who fouled him hard. Though the Hack-a-Shaq strategy had become common by then, Shaq finally snapped, and O'Neal immediately went after Miller, throwing 2 roundhouse punches while Miller had his back turned. Shaq claimed the punch was in retaliation for taking hard fouls from Miller, and he was fined $15,000. He was ejected and suspended 3 games, but the next few games, teams thought twice about fouling Shaq. Number 2, Chris Dudley. Shaq's had some monster jams in his day, but one of the nastiest dunks that he ever threw down was in March of 1999. Shaq was backing down the Knicks' journeyman center Chris Dudley on the low block. Once he was close enough, Shaq spun and elevated for the dunk. Dudley stayed in front of Shaq and did all he could to defend the basket. However, Shaq was just far too big and far too powerful to be contained by Dudley. Shaq basically baptized Dudley, but it didn't end there. With Dudley still all over him when he was coming off the rim, Shaq continued to hurl his weight forward and, as a part of his follow-through, pushed Dudley to the ground. Dudley took exception to the action and whipped the ball at Shaq. Dudley would get tossed and join teammate Kurt Thomas in the locker room, since Thomas was ejected for trying to fight then Laker Dennis Rodman earlier in the game. Lastly, number 1, Kobe Bryant. They may have had great chemistry, great enough to three-peat on a court. Shaq and Kobe Bryant's relationship off the court, though, was pretty harsh. Kobe was always frustrated by Shaq's lack of work ethic, and Shaq didn't appreciate Kobe's constant belief that he deserved a bigger role on the team. The two would exchange barbs in the media for years, but Shaq totally went after Kobe in 2008. A year after Kobe's Lakers lost to the Boston Celtics in the finals, Shaq got on stage at an NYC club to spit a few bars. Shaq rapped, quote, "You know how I be. Last week, Kobe couldn't do without me." He also implored the crowd to sing along to his oft-repeated chorus, "Kobe N-word, tell me how my A tastes." O'Neal had ended his rap by singing, quote, "Kobe, you can't do without me," over and over, which is just plain awesome. As teammates, it was always intense between the pair, so you could say they actually bullied each other. Quote, "The newspapers, needless to say, have treated the Kobe-Shaq feud as if it were the second coming of Cain versus Abel," wrote the head coach Phil Jackson. He went on to say, quote, "It's the return of Star Wars," was the headline in the Times. The story was designed to last for days and days. Every basketball reporter in the city, maybe the nation, on a savage hunt for the next insult or innuendo to filter through the grapevine. There was only so much the Lakers could do to try to tame the beast. And what is certain is it's the #1 Shaq feud of all time. So what do you think about Shaquille O'Neal? Is he your favorite NBA player? Let us know in the comment section down below. And also don't forget to like the video as well as subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.